because those women have not really been served by existing products and apps. So I think the first step is just focusing instead of trying to be a super app.
Hey, I'm Vishesh, your host. I'm a 5x founder and CTO. Still building. I also help founders like you ship faster and fix what's slowing you down. More at vishesh.space.
I'm joined by Ananya Grover, founder of HealCycle, Labouisse Fellow, and TED speaker. She's got a background in public health and a real passion for women's well-being. Her team's building HealCycle, an app that supports hormonal and mental health and is already trusted by thousands of women around the world. In this episode, we talk about what it really takes to build an AI health companion, from ethically recruiting early users in such a personal space to navigating the unique challenges of building for women's health. Hey, hi Ananya. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. If we press rewind, what was the moment for you where you were like, HealCycle needs to be a reality? And what got you started on this journey?
I think it's hard to pinpoint one exact moment, but it was definitely when I was working as a public health ambassador for the PAD Project. They're a nonprofit that works in menstrual equity. And I was having a series of conversations and interviews with health experts, doctors, professors. And this one in particular was centered around reproductive health and mental health in women, even despite being in this sphere, right, of leading a social campaign for menstrual health, raising awareness, period positivity. That was what I also gave my TED talk about. I wasn't really aware of the intersection of how hormones impact not just the period days, but really our entire cycle, moods, and across the lifespan, whether it's PMDD, which we'll discuss more, or menopause, which is the highest risk time for falling into depression or even rates of suicide in women. This intersection of women's mental health and how it's impacted by our biology was something I had no idea about. So that was the problem statement that sort of stuck with me and became something I kept coming back to or started thinking more about.
Right. And so you, after that stint, did you go into the industry or this was right after that?
No, it wasn't. This was during when I was still in college. So I was volunteering my
Right.
time for them. First as an ambassador, then leading in an advisory position and so on. I also had experiences outside of the healthcare space. I was really passionate about media and news as well. So I was exploring different things in college, including entrepreneurship, tech. I interned at Apple News. So it wasn't right after that, but it was something that stuck with me. And I had this document that I wrote that was sitting in my, and when it came to my senior year and I found out about postgraduate opportunities, besides, of course, you have jobs, which I was applying for. But being at Princeton, they offer a couple of opportunities exclusively for graduating seniors, which are very competitive and selective. But I wanted to apply for those. So that was the proposal. That was the document that eventually became my proposal and application for the Labouisse Fellowship, which allowed me to take on this project and do it for a year as a fellowship outside of after college. That's how I converted that spark of an idea to eventually starting the first step towards HealCycle.
Right. And so maybe this is a good segue into what does HealCycle do and where are you in your journey with HealCycle?
Right. So it is a daily hormone and mood tracking app with an AI health companion. We take into account this intersection, as I said, of cycle and mental health. So it's really designed to support women that have difficult premenstrual symptoms, including severe conditions like PMDD. We also have women who are in the phase of perimenopause and need to are experiencing a lot of different symptoms, which they're confused about. So beyond just being able to track your symptoms and journal, you can see those trends and get personalized insights into your own needs and pain points. Those trends also help people share those with a doctor or during their appointment, or advocate for themselves and get a diagnosis more easily. Our health companion is Tara, so we don't say it's a doctor or therapist, but it is designed to offer emotional support and answer questions related to women's health in a non-judgmental manner. And so it guides the user through those conversations, including suggesting activities from CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, grounding techniques, and so on, to support them 24/7. Because you might not, like, if it's at 2 a.m., you are having some sort of anxiety attack and you need help, that's the sort of space that we want to build, at least having that first point of contact. So that's HealCycle. We have certain features that are free for all to use, and then there is a subscription-based tier.
So you mentioned a couple of terms for men in the audience and people who don't know about this. Do you want to expand a little bit on, PMDD and PMS? And what's the
Absolutely.
difference?
So I think PMS is the more popularly known term. Sometimes it's also kind of thrown around as a meme or a joke. And
Yeah.
even then, so I'll break it down. PMS stands for premenstrual syndrome.
Right.
Now, both of those terms are important and sometimes misunderstood, because when people hear premenstrual, sometimes they think it's like adolescent health, like young girls only. But that's not what that phrase means. It just means that in your ovarian or hormonal cycle, in a woman's cycle, there are 4 phases. And the premenstrual phase is, as quite literally, the phase right before the actual period or bleeding days. So it's in scientific terminology, it's also called luteal phase. So this is the phase when these symptoms appear. It's called syndrome because anything which is very broad, like PMS, according to some research articles, is a cluster of about 150 different symptoms. So it's quite broad and it's been clustered under this umbrella, which is why it's called a syndrome. And also, that means it's on a spectrum. So about 80-85% women will have some form of PMS, but for some it will be very mild and it's easily manageable. But then you have a sliding scale of it becoming moderate to severe. Some people say PMDD is severe or the most severe form of PMS, but biologically it could also be a different mechanism. Like in layman terms, I sometimes say PMDD is like the evil cousin of PMS. It happens in that same time of the luteal phase, but it can be much longer. So that period, premenstrual phase for women that have PMDD, could be like even 2 weeks long. It could feel that long. And the definition is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So now you went from syndrome to disorder, and you have the word dysphoria. So the opposite of dysphoria, euphoria, is a state that's even higher than happiness, right? And when you think dysphoria, some therapists say like it's definitely like depression. It could even feel worse than that. So you're literally struggling. It's like cyclically having those feelings of you've gone under depression, you have severe anxiety maybe. Disappears sometimes after the first day or so of when the period actually starts. So that's PMDD. And in some cases, it doesn't disappear completely because people have an underlying condition. Like say I have bipolar or like anxiety disorder. And there is a baseline condition like throughout the month, throughout all my days. But in that phase, it gets worse. So then it becomes PME or premenstrual exacerbation. So the total number, if we combine together PMS, PME, and PMDD, becomes quite a large number of people, which hasn't been properly researched and quantified.
Right. Wow. That sounds intense. Given the severity of this, what are some of the things that you've done in the product that is driven by obviously the physiology of this, and what have been your product design choices that are different from, let's say, what you've seen so far?
Yes. So the number one thing is being able to differentiate or suggest when a situation is more serious and requires one-on-one medical attention or urgent attention. So in such a situation, there will always be the suggestion by the chatbot with a helpline number, with an SOS number, or, okay, this is what I can say, but more personalized medical advice, you should always consult. You should consult a medical provider or urgently seek help. So having that included in the conversation at the appropriate stage was very important. The second thing is because of how it varies as per the cycle, tracking on the same app. So initially we did consider in terms of design decision, should we entirely leave that out and only integrate through an API, like people are tracking on a different app and we are using and building on top of that data. But then it becomes a problem also in terms of, as a user, if I want something, I don't want to be using 2 or 3 different apps for the same purpose. That is one
Right.
thing. The other is like ownership, or do you have people and are they able are you able to like capture data in the way that it's needed to show insights? Like we also need the severity of it, not just yes or no for the. So those considerations drove us to have tracking as a component, and that allows us to also have that context when the user is chatting. So the companion knows where they are in their cycle, what phase it is, what previous symptoms they have reported, what they've mentioned in their journal logs. So like just to give you an example, once I myself was using it and I mentioned like I'm feeling lonely. And after suggesting, let's dig deeper into thought, let's, what is the underlying need here. It also was able to draw on a previous journal note that I'd made and mention that, okay, you went on a walk recently with experts, with one of your friends, and would you like to like reach out to them again and schedule something with them? So that layer, which we're still working on improving more and more of personalization, is quite helpful when it comes to offering helpful insights and being, it doesn't feel too generic or impersonal. I think that's very important for the kind of user that we would have.
Right. And so you have right now users across the globe, or are you focusing on any specific geographies?
We do have users coming in from a lot of different countries. The biggest ones right now are US, India, and then smaller numbers in other countries like Canada, UK. It's only been about a month, I would say, in European countries once we complied with GDPR. So now we are also live in the UK and Germany. But even before that, this was another signal that, okay, like people are requesting. Someone from Germany was emailing us because they couldn't access updating the app. Maybe they were in another country when they downloaded it, but now
Right.
they were in Germany and the app wasn't technically listed on the German app store. And so that was like, okay, they're actually reaching out and they want access to this. So things like that have been positive indications.
And if I remember, obviously I don't use something like this, but from what I remember, I've been in healthcare for a while and also in the tracking space for a bit. There are a few apps that do this. So you do
Yes.
have competition, which is
Yeah.
a healthy signal. How do you think you are different from the competition, and why should people choose, let's say, HealCycle versus the other competition?
I think you're right in saying that the competition is a good sign that there is need here and people are using solutions that actually help with their problems. I think going beyond the general, like, okay, this will track your periods and tell you when your next set like period is coming, or focusing solely on fertility tracking. So that is a use case that is solved quite well. And so where the gaps in those for women are when it comes to specifically these conditions that I'm speaking about, which is PMDD, PME. Even in the perimenopause phase, a lot of people, some of our users who were older than the exact demographic that we were targeting, that we're still, targeting, reaching out and saying that, okay, can you add a separate tab for this? So because those women have not really been served by existing products and apps. So I think the first step is just focusing, instead of trying to be a super app, focusing on our niche that feels like the current apps or products are not meeting their needs, and honing in on that and then building from there. That is the thesis right now, because as you said, like with the biggest players they are and the number of years that have already been put in, I think going too broad will actually not differentiate us. So that's why we have this niche focus. In addition, I think there is a lot of personalization possible and more scientific, advice and knowledge within apps like these. That's one of the big complaints that people have. Like, it feels very, even for their core use case of fertility tracking, I won't name the app, but it's one of the biggest ones. So I spoke to someone, they were trying to get pregnant, or they were like, the couple was pregnant, but he said they paid for the premium but felt like the advice was very stupid. So it seems like they weren't getting what they really wanted out of it. So things like that. The other big one is privacy. So these two things, I think the second one with what AI makes possible, that's why the focus on the companion, being able to both use the great examples that we have like Duolingo with their Duo Owl, and you have Finch with their bird. So similarly, our companion is a jellyfish called Tara. And so the experience of like clearly saying this is not a human, but the
Right.
things we're able to do in terms of now we can build upon the gamification side also to actually encourage people to check in. Do those, that's one of the biggest points which people always say, like, how do you ensure that people actually track? How do you ensure that they do those daily check-ins? So that element plus the conversational AI, which has improved a lot. So what is possible now wasn't necessarily possible like 5 years back, as we know. And that second point of privacy. So that's why we have taken that seriously. A lot of people, because of political and legal changes in the US, are very concerned about, especially like cycle data. So we have the option of end-to-end encryption as well for that reason.
Hmm.
And standard encryption for all users is definitely there. So that helps to signal very clearly. And this is something we believe in as well, that, this is your personal health data. We want to help you. We are not selling it to advertisers.
This is obviously a very personal sort of phase for people to kind of go through, and it's a very personal thing, right? As a new player in the market, how did you, get your first 100 users? How did you convince them? Are there any lessons from that journey that other entrepreneurs in the space can take a leaf out of?
We started putting our selves out there even before the app was launched. So we didn't wait for the initial, even the beta app to be finished. There was a landing page and website. There was a wait list. I started doing events, which were just like maybe online webinars with a guest speaker or a doctor. Some of them were in-person sessions in colleges where I just reached out, and those were some of them were local in Delhi, and then one or two virtual ones with, for example, UC San Diego. So things like that. I think getting to the first 100 was mainly a process of having these people and not letting them kind of go after just the event or webinar, but giving them a way to like stay in the loop by signing up on the wait list or joining this WhatsApp group that we had made. So we had access to them when we launched our beta app, which was an Android launch first, because this is also something I realized, like, because we were building both iOS and Android at the same time with React Native as a cross-platform language. Challenges, like, I think there are people that will say, especially app founders, there are pros and cons of doing both apps at the same time, because then you have to
Right.
keep maintaining both of them. So some people entirely sacrifice Android, but in terms of distributing a beta version of the app even before it's listed on the Play Store, I think because you can just share that APK file, it does make it easier than iOS with its test flight based
Yeah.
distribution. Yeah.
I've lived through that. That is not ideal for sure.
Yeah.
And so you saw, because you were able to share those APKs, you were able to, one, get them installed faster, and two, get data.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that strategy could work definitely if your audience is split.
Mhm.
There are a lot of apps that, you know, take the iOS route first because of the premiumness of the audience that is there. I
Yes.
don't know if it's premium anymore. I think it's pretty widely adopted, but I think that was the rationale behind going iOS first. And so you said you met these people, like you hosted events, but what was the promise? Why did they join the waitlist, or why did they stay in touch on WhatsApp? Like, what was the value add that you delivered? Because the app was not out, right? And so,
Right.
what was the motivation for them to stay connected, I guess?
I think it was probably dual. Some of them were people that either knew me, maybe
Hmm.
not as friends, but had followed me from some previous content or something. I did not make these personally, but I had done some other videos with other YouTubers back when I like got into Princeton. And so some people have been following
Hmm.
from my TED Talk or from those other videos. So it was maybe some amount of like personal interest in like, okay, what is she doing right now? And then the next part was definitely delivering value or information, education, even just through those webinars. Like if you have a topic where they need answers about their health or they can ask a question to a doctor. So delivering that sort of information so they stay in the loop is where I think the two main reasons people probably signed up. And we kept sending, not too many, but regular newsletters to people that were on the email list. And on Instagram, we started posting content. So those were ways in which they probably kept seeing us
Good.
and getting something out of it.
Right. There was recently a story about characters AI. I don't know if you came across that, right? And given you have a companion piece to your app, how, before or after the story, where this person who basically was on the app and then ended up, he was, I think, teen or preteen, and they committed suicide, right? And so you can clearly see how AI is not 100% ready, and companies need to take some accountability on what the user does with the platform depending on the audience you're opening it up to. And so given your app is a companion app as well, did you one do anything before the story, or are you more cautious after the fact, and what are the steps you're taking to safeguard um you know
Yeah, I it's really sad with those stories. I think both before and after. Before was even figuring out like what our companion should be, whether it should be, this was a big point of discussion also, should it be like anthropomorphic in any way? Like a lot of the characters available on these like replica or character AI are also for the purpose of kind of being like your AI girlfriend or AI boyfriend. They're unofficially being used even if they don't say it out loud. And so it's very easy to form more parasocial relationships with such a persona. So kind of avoiding that was part of the even initial thinking of what type of character should it be. And so like that was the reason where we went with, okay, like let's make it an animal, keep it, cute, and completely avoid any implications of it being a human to human relationship. The second, and then further, as I talked about this earlier too, like having it part of the conversational flow where it's going to ask people to seek support and offer helplines and SOS very clearly if it detects anything like that. Obviously, I think it still needs even further safeguards. And so we are continuing to work on that aspect. But from the like we also did evaluations manually, comparing different responses and choosing, okay, this is the best kind of prompt that we can go with. And those steps are some things that we have already done. Given that this keeps evolving and there are incidents like these happening, we are continuing to think about, okay, what can we improve further?
this is something that you've got to work on continuously, I guess. And so on the companion front, I use a lot of Claude and ChatGPT for and there are phases when ChatGPT became super agreeable, and I think Claude code at least is very agreeable to you. You have to literally harangue it for questions or question it for whether the approach is valid or not. So AI can be very submissive at times. How do you design for warmth yet make sure the companion is not completely losing the plot of how they're supposed to be helping the users in your case? Are there anything specific that you've done to navigate around that in terms of prompts or even technology, I guess?
Yes. So It is through prompts. We had to refine it several times. We'll have to keep doing that. And examples that we have given it. It has access also to our database of like articles, video sources, etc. So it can suggest those. So those are some like code-based, I guess, things beyond just prompting. And with the prompt also like evaluating different versions, different questions, and seeing how it performs. That was one thing. The other is just with the flow, or being very, very specific on what it should answer, what it should not, how that conversation style should go, because we don't want to affirm, as you said, we don't want to affirm everything that the user is saying, like ChatGPT that became very agreeable. So some examples or some techniques that are used in therapy are, those are available in the prompt to guide the conversation
Got it.
as per the way we wanted to help the user.
That must have required a lot of research. Do you have people on your team that are, so you have an engineering background, right? If I
Yes.
remember our conversation.
Yeah.
So do you have people on your team who are, not robots like you and me?
So I also did, I think it helped, but I also did a minor in cognitive science. So at least that part, understanding psychology and neuroscience has helped. And then I have someone I'm working really close with. So it's not, is our medical advisor, Dr. Ananta. She is a psychiatrist, and she is really passionate about women's mental health, has also done a fellowship in psychosexual health. So some psychiatrists, for like, there is this reputation that they resort to prescribing medication, which can also have a lot of side effects. But I think she really follows this like psychosocial. Those are the three pillars. So that model of sometimes you don't need medication, maybe therapy is the right step. So having that holistic view. And we have, so using that expertise, and then interns who are from a psychology background and interested in research. Those are the ways in which we kind of did this research that was required.
And what have been some of the failures along the journey in terms of things not working out, specifically, considering the space? Like, what can people learn from those?
I think is really hard to do distribution on Instagram and like growing from scratch,
Right.
and also event based things that I mentioned. So online, yes, but I think even with in-person gatherings, or, that is a strategy that is being used by a lot of like consumer focused brands or apps. It is easier said than done. And maybe from like, especially for people coming in from like a technical background, it seems like, okay, like it's just like throwing together something. But community building and like that, especially growing through events and organizing them, is a task and skill set in and of itself, I think, because like there have been specific moments where it was like, okay, this completely flopped. Like, for example, or what, it didn't completely flop, but for example, if we organize like a yoga kind of session, which also was supposed to just be a form of community building eventually, to also get people talking about HealCycle, sharing it with others, and so on. But there would be like 20, 30 people signed up, and we know that there is a limited space. So we close signups, but then like 5 people show up. So that is very like common and normal. But like accepting that when you've put in that effort is really difficult, I think. So those that like, I think learning distribution and building that muscle has been I appreciate that, but I also think it is challenging.
Yeah, I have been on that side as well way back. One of the things that I have seen work really well is like people who are very open to oversubscription. So, they will just lead with that expectation, like just open, but there's only space for these many, right? If you come in on time, you'll get in, or you won't, like as a footprint, not as a
Hmm.
screaming signboard. Or you just be open to some people being pissed because no shows do happen.
Yes.
But if you're putting that kind of effort, you want the space to be full.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That can hurt. Anything else apart from that, that sort of you found as a challenge from a user experience point of view, or onboarding
Yeah,
user?
I onboarding users, one thing that this is not a failure, but more so just as again, like a challenge perhaps of the audience split between US and India. So I think
Hmm.
these are, again, because these are at different the countries are at different stages of development for a lot of people that are used to India only apps, which
Right.
we were initially considering, but realizing or looking at some other people that have tried or what is working in this market, decided to go global and instead of trying to go India only and super deep here. Again, this might be something that we learn and change along the way, but at least like some people are so used to then having like their OPT, sorry, o- OTP, not OPT.
You're still graduating. OPT, for people who are not aware, is what some professional training after you graduate as
Yeah.
a foreign student in the US.
Yes, yeah. So are used to like UPI payments, and then you have like you log in through your phone number and so on. And then we currently have like an email-based system,
Right.
which some people don't like. So maybe that is something we'll again have to measure and change down the line.
Yeah, yeah. People in India are very used to OTP. OTP is one-time password for people who
Yes.
they're not used to OTP. And yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of that. Like culturally, we are so used to, if you live in a XYZ country, you're used to what people are doing there. And if you're building a global brand, you need to understand each geography and what the behavior is there. For example, like in the US, WhatsApp is nowhere close to what it is in probably India or Europe. Europe as well, people are very open to coming onto your WhatsApp, whereas in the US, it's like there is a boundary. There's a WhatsApp boundary somehow. Um, and so, just for context, you are building from India now, and the product is global. You started with the India first distribution. Did you start selling to doctors or through doctors, or you were always direct to consumer, both in India and across the globe? How did you go about things?
Yes, so we were always direct to the user, and we do have, you could say, a distribution strategy, which is going through doctors or at least through conferences in some way. That is Dr. Ananda, who is our medical advisor, who is primarily the one that has shared it in her circles or in conferences where she is invited to speak, has been helpful to have like a sponsor in those rooms and be able to reach those people as well. There have been some initial steps that we have taken, like putting HealCycle and our brochures in all the clinics of Gaudium IVF, which is the third largest IVF chain in India. So things like that, but it's not directly going to the like the doctor is not the end user right now.
Right.
The reason for that was also like from the get-go, we would have to have like a two-sided strategy of like if there is like the user, the patient, and then also building for the doctor. I think that splits our focus. And from what I've heard, especially for the Indian context, but there are challenges in both countries. I think in India, the challenge is that healthcare is very fragmented, and so we a lot of individual clinics and smaller setups.
Right.
And so B2B is not that easy if you have to distribute through those fragmented clinics. And on the other hand, in the US, if you do any form of telehealth or go the clinical route, it is very heavily regulated with compliances, with FDA rules, and so on. So instead of getting bogged down with that right from day one, it made more sense to go directly to the user and then grow that way which is also something we have seen. If I look at apps like Visa was a startup that started in Bangalore. And so they have two different versions. One is entirely for the user and or available broadly. And then another one, which is covered by insurance and available only by prescription. So that's a goal we can work towards.
What's it called? Sorry.
Visa. Yeah.
It's spelled like Visa.
No, it's spelled like WYSA.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. They have some level of FDA certification, either as a FDA breakthrough device or SAMD or software as a medical device, or they at least have some RCT or clinical trial. proving outcomes and efficacy. And then you have to go through insurance companies or employers. Insurance, I think Visa has their insurance covered app. So you have to convince them it's worth covering. So those are the steps.
Right. So you're already exploring path of collaborating with insurance companies. Are you also partnering with like gynecologists, psychiatrists, therapists? Is that a route?
We are exploring, instead of teleconsultations, that is one possible option. The other one, which comes out of a pain point that we realized from our survey, is that a lot of people, even after knowing that there are certain things or steps that they want to take or lifestyle changes that they need to make, struggle with accountability or implementing and following through on that. So that becomes more of a function of habit change, behavior design, and falls under the health coaching territory. So one of the gynecologists who has been a mentor so far, her name is Dr. Shabnam. She is now based in Canada. She has practiced as a gynecologist in India first, and then switched to this approach, which is becoming quite famous in the longevity circles also, which is functional medicine or functional health that takes into account aspects and treats you more holistically. So she is certified as a tiny habits coach as well, which again focuses on this behavior change and lifestyle change element. So we are exploring designing a program such as that for HealCycle and for our users, like specific pain points and needs that they can then implement and actually follow through and make those changes. So that's one direction that I think is quite promising, also because it is solving a need that even if you have access to a doctor easily or you have that consultation, you know certain things that you're supposed to do, even medication adherence, for example, can become a tiny habit that you need to stick to, and a lot of people struggle with. So you get like 10 to 15 minutes actually during a consultation. And then the doctor also can like hold your hand through the process of like changing your diet or making those, taking those steps every day. So if we can help with that through this tiny habits approach, that's something I'm excited about.
Yeah, so almost like an extension to whoever they're working with. So
Yes.
in a way, you then become a B2B. Right? How long have you guys been around?
So technically, I started working on my own last June, mid-June.
And so it's a little over a year, so to speak. What are some of the burning challenges today?
I think keeping momentum and growth and also retention, like focusing both on acquisition and retention at the same time to not make it a leaky bucket, so to say.
Right.
The other one is also deciding on, as I mentioned, like I have interests in the wearable space and therapeutic devices, which can really help users manage symptoms better or have more data available to them. But it does mean it's a question of like whether to add on that hardware piece on our own and at what stage to do it. So that is part of the roadmap. But I think, again, that is a more of a decision challenge right now on whether we go in that direction or not, especially because I'm a solo founder. So if I am able to find a really strong complementary person as a founding team member or a co-founder who can lead the vision on the hardware side more strongly, then I think it would be an easier bet to take.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So we've reached never get a cold email. That's the section. So simple questions, much easier than what we've tackled so far. So it shouldn't be. What's the most ridiculous growth hack you've actually tried and regretted?
I don't know if we've tried super ridiculous things, but maybe like a giveaway. I think it didn't really achieve too much.
Hmm.
It did get a lot of attention or people tagging each other, but it was momentary. So I don't think it's easy to like have lasting followers from something like giving away something that would be useful to them. Yeah.
What was the giveaway?
It was like a gel-based, it was an innovative heating pad that could help
Nice.
people with cramps. Yeah. So I wouldn't say it was ridiculous. I just
Right.
wonder if that really like led to what we were thinking of. But it was just one of those things that we were trying out.
Yeah. No, but I like the giveaway though, especially in your context, because when they actually use that, um, yeah, it'll remind them of your app. So actually, it's a very good idea.
Okay.
Not bad.
Well, let's scratch that from the question.
What's
Yeah.
the most foundery purchase you've made since starting the company?
I probably have bought like a couple of books. Like one of them is the design sprint. So those are definitely like foundery purchases.
Have you already bought hard things about hard things?
No, I have not.
Add that to your list. That's a good
Yeah.
one. If you could slip one book in every founder's welcome kit, which one would you sneak in?
Maybe the mom test. I hope everyone's probably heard of that at this point, but that was something that was mentioned to me early on because otherwise you're really having leading conversations with your users and customers.
Yeah, that's a good book. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You're already probably circulating a deck, right? If you've raised before or you've circulated a deck. Looking back, what's the one slide from your own pitch deck that you would delete or hit Control Z, I guess?
Probably TAM, which was too ambitious, or like every woman on the planet is the total addressable market.
Yeah, TAM is a good one. I think a lot of people way overestimate the TAM, so you're not alone. What's the one founder lesson you'd happily tell your friends, but never your competitors? Unless they're watching this podcast, then they'll see it.
I think it is a lot of just unglamorous things. It's especially in the early stages, and people are right about saying that it's easier or distribution is really important. A lot of people nowadays are even saying that, content creators are going to be the new entrepreneurs because they already have an audience, they have a personal brand, and then you can build on top of that. So I do see some truth in that.
Maybe I think becoming a content creator is probably a lot worse than a founder. I've been a founder for 17 years and a content creator for maybe a year and a half. I think it is way more ruthless. Being a founder is easier. Maybe the world is changing. What's the one piece of advice you ignored at first but now secretly preach?
Not trying to do too many things at once. I think
Hmm.
initially we had like a lot of, even in terms of features or things that we would have on the app, or even just the MVP, it was a lot more than it needed to be.
Right.
So cruising down on that and focusing is really important.
And is there any, like, how do you decide what to focus on personally?
Great question. I
There's so
think,
much to do, right?
yes, yeah. It does go back to a couple, like both research and some amount of intuition, and then also talking to users does help in understanding, okay, like we had these things in mind, but if that's not something that's reflecting from their just understanding their problems and what they're talking about, then it's not necessary at this stage. So just focusing on what people are saying or what is keeping them around.
All right, that was it. Where can people reach you and where can people explore HealCycle if they are interested in using it?
So you can find us on both iOS and Android. If you want to try the app, it's called HealCycle with no gaps. And you also can visit our website, which is www.healcycle.com. We are by that same handle, HealCycle, on Instagram. Or if you're on TikTok, you can follow me at Ananya_HealCycle. So I hope that people try it out, and please do send feedback. Please email me at Ananya Grover, that's my full name, at HealCycle.com if you're interested or want to explore a potential role or just bounce off ideas.
Well, Ananya, thanks for joining me again. It was lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me once again.
If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. See you in the next episode.